All right, let's talk New Orleans Saints. You know we've got some juicy stuff for you today because I'm coming to you guys from an undisclosed location, supposedly on vacation with my family, but we're taking time to record this because we got some interesting stuff involving the Saints and a potential massive find by this front office. We'll get to all that in just 1 second, but first, I am Nick, that is Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, the New Orleans Saints, so we've covered them a lot this offseason. They've been in the media in terms of the quarterback battle, right? What's going on there? A lot of news with Tyler Shuck, of course, Spencer Rattler. How that's all going to shake out remains to be seen. They've also done a good job through the draft. We've covered a lot of their moves. Really solid offseason overall for the New Orleans Saints. New head man Kellen Moore kind of putting his imprint on this organization, trying to steer this team back to playoff contention. But when you talk about great finds, when you talk about things not getting a lot of media attention, it was an undrafted free agent addition by the New Orleans Saints. We're talking running back Marcus Yarns from Delaware that isn't getting the media buzz. Only the folks over at Pro Football Focus PFF highlighted this kid as a potential great find. And folks, when you dig into the data, you dig into the numbers, I know the running back room looks pretty full for New Orleans, but they may have to make way for this kid, Marcus Yarns. When you look at his data, he's off the chart. So let's bring up our first graphic here to highlight exactly what I'm talking about. So we compared Marcus Yarns here to three other potential running back steals. I'll frame it like that. Guys who were drafted, they were not undrafted, drafted guys, not like the Ashton Gentees or Marion Hampton first round pick superstar guys, but good quality players that were drafted well outside of day one that were considered great finds by all three teams that selected them. We're talking about Cam Scatterbo, Jalen Blue, and Jarquez Hunter. There are three guys working left to right. And you can see on our first graphic here, we're talking yards after contact per attempt. This is one of my favorite metrics to evaluate running back performance because this is one of those, I call it offensive line adjusted metrics, right? Because any running back or most running backs, I'll say it like that, if their offensive line opens up a big hole, they can rip through it for a 40, 50-yard run until no one touches them. They have all kinds of crazy statistics. Anybody can and should do that. The good running backs are able to break tackles, fall forward, yards after contact, all that kind of stuff, which, to be totally honest, is how you're going to have to make your living in the NFL as a running back. It's not like in college where if you're on a great team playing an inferior team, you get massive holes, you dominate, put up all kind of crazy numbers. It doesn't work that way in the National Football League. And if you look at these numbers here, look at Yarn specifically, he's better than Cam Scatterbo on the far left. You can see that. Even though Cam Scatterbo is known for being a powerful runner, he's better, significantly better than Jadon Blue out of Texas, and he's better than Jarquez Hunter out of Auburn. And again, I know people look at a guy like Yarns coming out of Delaware and they say, well, it's the level of competition and all that, and that's 100% fair, but that's why I like these kind of metrics, because this looks at the fact that Yarns here had the same yards after contact per attempt with the Delaware offensive line, right? So he had the same kind of quality of offensive line blocking for him, FCS offensive line, than let's say a Jadon Blue who had a Texas offensive line blocking for him. So you can see it's not quite apples to apples, but it's a little bit closer than comparing some other statistics. And let's bring up another data point that I think highlights some of the same aspect here. We're talking about breakaway percentage. This is probably my second favorite statistic to evaluate running backs coming out of the NFL draft. What percentage of your runs, again, we're talking efficiency here, turn into breakaway runs, right? Do you have the ability to make, if the hole is there, if you get up to the second, third level, can you make one or two people miss and turn it into a big run? We talk about the NFL these days all the time. It's becoming a much more big play kind of league. It's 3 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards, and then bang, the 50-yard run breaks everything open. That's what a lot of teams are looking for when the running game. You look at, of course, the Philadelphia Eagles with Saquon Barkley last season being the preeminent example of just that. And you can see based on the data here, Yarns was better than two of the guys, Cam Scatterbo and Jadon Blue. Jadon Blue, by the way, known for being a home run hitter. Yarns, though, better at Delaware. Jarquez Hunter, though, took the cream of the crop here. He had a really good job. Great find by the Rams. Give credit where credit is due there. But I think this is where you can, again, look at offensive line adjusted, because this is a situation where Jadon Blue had a less breakaway rushing percentage with that Texas offensive line than Marcus Yarns did with that Delaware offensive line. So, again, we're talking offensive line, apples to apples here. You've got a great offensive line in Texas compared to their peers, right? Texas was the better team than 90% of their opposition last year. Jadon Blue, I'd actually expect to have a much higher breakaway percentage, to be totally fair, with that quality offensive line. So again, this isn't a situation where you can look at yards and say, well, he did that at Delaware. You could make an argument there that that's kind of the case. But when you look at the fact that Jadon Blue had a great offensive line and Hunter with Auburn, decent offensive line, not great, you could sit there and say, yeah, this is a favorable comparison. Again, kind of an offensive line adjusted metric. And then finally here, we're talking 10-yard run percentage. Again, this is sort of a sneaky statistic that a lot of people don't focus on. A lot of people like yards after contact per attempt. A lot of people like the long runs. Now we're looking at middle ground. Okay, what percent of your runs are 10 plus yards? And again, very similar kind of dynamic here. Marcus Yarns second to Jarquez Hunter, again, who looks like a great find by the Rams, ahead of Cam Scatabo, ahead of Jadon Blue. Again, offensive line adjusted metric here, efficiency based. It's a percentage of your carries, right? It's not like he got 500 attempts last season. Marcus Yarns did, and this is the reason he got a lot of 10-yard plus runs because of it. This is strictly on a percentage basis, so this is on an efficiency basis, on a per carry basis, and you can see here Marcus Yarns, like he did in the previous two graphs, compares very favorably to other potential steals, running backs that were selected in the 2025 NFL Draft. Yarns obviously was not. Now, look, like I mentioned there in the opening, this is a really crowded Saints running back room. Will Yarns break through? Is he more than a camp body practice squad guy? Only time will tell. But I think it's very clear based on the data, the Saints got themselves a quality football player, and these are the kind of guys to not sleep on. Are they going to be day one contributors? Most likely not. I would say barring just a rash of injuries, we're not going to see a lot of Yarns week one for the New Orleans Saints. But this is a guy that could be a practice squad guy, a special teams guy that could eventually develop into a quality football player. And you talk about the backbone of teams, right? Obviously, you have to have quarterback right, and the Saints are clearly focusing on that. They're hoping to get coach right with Kellen Moore, and they're filling out the rest of their roster with really solid selections. Of course, the first round selection, the offensive tackle out of Texas, no less, follows that same kind of trend. But it's a sort of lower tier, mid tier roster guys that fill out your roster and give the pieces you need to be a deep playoff team. The Saints are a great example of a team that, at least when healthy over the past 3 or 4 years or so, their top of the line roster was laced with stars, laced with big names, guys that were quality players. But their mid to lower tier guys on their roster and their depth, certainly that was exposed last year, was below par. I look at the addition of a guy like Marcus Yarns, who will sooner rather than later grow into a quality depth piece and may eventually become a solid regular contributor. We'll have to see how it all shakes out over the course of training camp. That preseason, of course, he's got a long road to hoe in front of him, tough battles ahead. But I think when you look at the data and you look at what Marcus Yarns did during his time in college, this looks like a phenomenal find, an obscure one, but a phenomenal find by the New Orleans Saints. All right, Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of this. But first, Saints fans, in the comment section below, talking undrafted free agents here. So let me ask you this. Your opinion, who is the greatest undrafted free agent in team history? A lot of different directions you could go here, a lot of ways you could take this, but I'm going to make you only pick one. Who is the greatest undrafted free agent in Saints history? Let us know in the comment section below. And while you're down there, make sure you sign up for our weekly newsletter, 100% free, courtesy of the Substack platform. There's a link in the description box below. A lot of great content, a lot of extra stuff for you guys, so make sure you check it out. Again, link below, 100% free. But Mize, over to you now. What are your thoughts on just everything in front of you here when it comes to Marcus Yarns and the New Orleans Saints?
Yeah, Nick, I think Yarns looks very interesting, and I think there's a lot of really good stuff to like about what he brings to the table. This guy, like you said, his statistically, he matches up well with some other guys that were drafted in that same position as far as guys that they want to be, steals, want guys to break out. And I think Yarns does a lot of good things. But when I look at his stats, when I look at his analytics, two things jump out at me. One, something that I think is important is this a guy that just had one big year and rides off into the sunset, hope to get drafted or hope to make the league? No, this is a guy that had some sustained success. He is very good for multiple years. 2022 kind of had his breakout year where he started to get some good reps, get some good numbers. He followed that up in 2023 where I think he had a phenomenal year. He had overall 90 plus grades in all those categories, had a big year as far as touchdowns go, 15 touchdowns, which is actually the same amount of touchdowns as guys like Amarian Hampton were getting. Amarian Hampton in the last 2 years got 15 touchdowns in back-to-back seasons. So he's able to score when he needs to. But then most importantly to me, after having a big year in 2023 and 2024, he followed it up similarly with another very strong year, high 80s grades. He actually improved on an aspect, a little bit of fumbling problem in 2023, cleaned it up, zero fumbles in 2024. So I think this guy is a guy who I think has sustained success. It looks to me he's the type of guy that is going to learn from his mistakes, analyze, grow, going from having 3 fumbles to having 0 fumbles in a season. I think that looks good. I think that it looks he's growing, doing a lot of good stuff. He averaged over 6 yards a carry, over actually 6.5 yards a carry for 3 straight seasons. He did really, really good in that aspect. So I think this guy, he seems very, very strong, like a good running back for this Saints team. But you talk about, where does he fit into this Saints locker room? There's a lot of running backs here, but I'm sure if you ask Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you don't overlook 7th round and undrafted free agent running backs. We all saw what Isaiah Pacheco did with the Chiefs when he was able to move in there as a guy drafted famously in the 7th round, a guy that, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he was a first round pick on that roster. And then Pacheco instantly, shines, shows he's really great, becomes a starter on that team. Now we're talking about a locker room who also has Cam Akers and Alvin Kamara, a little bit different situation. But I think when we're talking about Yarns, what he can bring to the table, I wouldn't count him out. We've seen crazier things happen. This is a guy that I think has the potential to make the rotation, at least get some snaps. Is he going to be the starter? No, not at all. It's disrespectful to say he's going to start over a guy like Alvin Kamara. It's just not going to happen. But I think he's a guy with potential. And when you look at the future, I think the key here, when we talk about guys like Isaiah Pacheco, we talk about the league as a whole. Overall, outside of, I'd say, 2 examples, 2 outliers when you talk about Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, younger and cheaper at the running back position has been very successful lately. So getting a guy like Yarns on your roster, a potential draft steal, a potential guy that you can, when the decision makes it, when you have your rookie quarterback in tow and you need to get, a younger, cheaper guy, if you got to start paying some guys on to a good deal, get him in here. Yarns is that kind of guy. Yarns is the guy that if he's looking good, if he's has good, stats throughout the season, if you like what you see through a few seasons with him, what he's able to do, this is the kind of steal you need. This is the kind of guy that can flip your team by being the cheaper option at running back that we have seen has been proven to work throughout the league. You don't necessarily need Alvin Kamara to win. He's very nice. He's a talented running back, and he can do a lot of really great things. But we've seen other teams be successful with the younger, with the lesser known running back ability. It just seems like a league where running back by committee or getting a new young running back, the talent level that deeper into the drafts nowadays has been more and more NFL ready. So I think with a guy like Marcus Yarns, it was a really good addition for the Saints because I think at the very least he can help and can contribute to this team in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and just a final point to end on. We talked about, of course, in the running back draft class in 2025, Ashton Jeanty, top of the list, Boise State, phenomenal player, Heisman Trophy finalist, all that kind of stuff, top 10 selection in the first round. He graded out, courtesy of PFF, playing for Boise State, good but not great competition, if we're being totally honest. His overall offensive grade was 94.9, absolutely outstanding. Let me ask you this. What do you think Marcus Yarns' PFF grade was his final season at Delaware, folks? 94.9. Now, look, we're not saying he's Ashton Jeanty. We're not saying he's weren't close. But at a certain point, you have to look at the data and look at the analytics and say, yeah, I mean, if he's the FCS equivalent, that's a great find as an undrafted free agent. And I think that's the big takeaway here, right? You talk about the value you can get, the dollars you can open up, and the Saints and salary cap. We know that's a concern. We know that's an issue this offseason and really going forward until they get things settled out and figure out how Kellen Moore is going to work this roster, who's going to be the quarterback. Having a cheap, valuable asset that's going to be just a guy who can be incredibly productive and explosive, and for all the reasons we highlighted before, will be a great value for the New Orleans Saints. That's why he's the guy to keep an eye on. Again, is he going to supplant Alvin Kamara this season? Probably not. Realistically, it ain't going to happen, like you said, Mize. But I think you talk about a great value addition at a dollars basis versus his productivity. This is the kind of finds you want when you go late in the draft, when you go undrafted free agent. I think this is a great job by the Saints, and Marcus Yarns is definitely a guy to keep an eye on.